Imagine this right now. Within the hidden layers of your mind, someone deeply significant in your life is holding intense, unspoken emotions for you, quietly longing for something far beyond casual friendship or surface-level connection. This is not a simple attraction. It feels like a deeper current running beneath awareness, as if your unconscious is speaking through another person's emotional world. A powerful pull rising from the collective unconscious, asking to be noticed and understood. If you sense that someone special may secretly desire more with you, you can acknowledge it inwardly and stay open to what follows. The unconscious mind often carries emotional truths that the conscious ego refuses to see or chooses to ignore. It functions like a vast, hidden reservoir beneath everyday awareness, storing feelings in their purest, unfiltered form. From a Jungian perspective, the ego is only a small fragment of the whole psyche, constantly shaping perception through social conditioning, fears, and self-protection. Because of this filtering, it tends to suppress or rationalize emotions that feel too intense or destabilizing, especially those that challenge identity or comfort. These buried emotional truths frequently involve deep romantic or soul-level attractions towards someone meaningful in our lives. Emotions so strong that admitting them openly might disrupt existing relationships, personal identity, or emotional stability. Yet the unconscious does not follow the ego's rules. It preserves these feelings and expresses them indirectly through symbolic dreams, sudden intuitive impressions, or powerful emotional reactions when that person appears or is mentioned. This internal resistance exists because the ego fears vulnerability and the uncertainty that comes with emotional surrender. It may label deep attraction as friendship, imagination, or temporary infatuation, pushing it back into silence. Still, the unconscious continues to express itself through subtle tension, inner restlessness, or a quiet longing that does not fade. This creates a private emotional world where desire and connection continue developing beneath conscious denial. The natural movement of the psyche is always toward wholeness, which means these hidden emotions seek expression. Often they emerge through projection, where inner feelings are experienced as if they belong entirely to the other person. What appears as their hidden interest may partially reflect one's own unrecognized emotional reality. Becoming aware of this dynamic requires observing subtle signs, such as repeated thoughts, bodily sensations like warmth or nervousness, or meaningful coincidences that seem connected to that person. By observing without immediate judgment, a person slowly begins to access deeper layers of emotional truth that the ego has kept out of awareness. This process reveals connections that can lead to greater inner integration and more authentic relational understanding. Within Jungian psychology, the anima and animus represent inner opposite gender archetypes that shape attraction and emotional projection. The anima refers to the unconscious feminine aspect within the male psyche, while the animus represents the unconscious masculine aspect within the female psyche. These are symbolic patterns rather than literal identities, containing qualities such as emotional depth, intuition, receptivity, logic, structure, or assertiveness, depending on the inner balance of the individual. When these inner forces remain unrecognized, they are projected outward onto others. In such cases, a person may feel an intense attraction toward someone who seems to embody something deeply familiar or incomplete within themselves. That special individual becomes a canvas onto which unconscious desires are projected, creating a sense of magnetic emotional pull. What feels like the other person's hidden desire may actually be the psyche's attempt to unify internal opposites and move toward wholeness. These projections often show up as idealized perceptions, sudden emotional intensity, or a feeling of deep recognition that cannot be logically explained. While the ego interprets this as purely external attraction, It is often a reflection of internal psychological movement seeking balance. Until these inner archetypes are acknowledged and integrated, they continue shaping emotional experiences through projection onto significant people. This is why certain connections feel unusually powerful or even destined, as though they carry a meaning beyond ordinary interaction. They become symbolic spaces where inner wholeness is unconsciously pursued. If you have ever felt an unexplainable pull towards someone, that experience may reflect this inner dynamic. Synchronicity, a concept introduced by Carl Jung, describes meaningful coincidences that are not linked by direct cause and effect, yet feel deeply significant. These events often suggest a connection between inner psychological states and external reality. In the context of deep emotional attraction, synchronicity can appear as a way the unconscious mind communicates what the conscious mind is unwilling to accept. These are not random occurrences, but meaningful patterns, such as thinking of someone and suddenly receiving a message from them, or repeatedly encountering symbols connected to them in daily life. The unconscious uses these experiences to draw attention to emotional truths that are trying to surface. When awareness resists acknowledging deep feelings, the psyche may intensify synchronicities to break through denial. These moments often carry emotional weight or a sense of significance that is hard to ignore. They can feel like shared emotional alignment, suggesting that something deeper is unfolding beneath surface awareness. Such experiences bypass logical reasoning and speak directly to intuition. They create the impression of hidden emotional correspondence, even when nothing has been explicitly expressed. Whether interpreted symbolically or psychologically, they point toward inner emotional material seeking recognition and integration. The shadow, in Jungian terms, represents the part of the psyche that contains repressed emotions, instincts, and desires that the conscious self rejects. It is where socially unacceptable or personally uncomfortable feelings are stored, including intense attraction or emotional longing that feels difficult to admit. When it comes to someone deeply important in your life, the shadow may hold suppressed desire, jealousy, or emotional intensity that the ego refuses to acknowledge. On the surface, the relationship may appear calm or ordinary, while underneath, strong emotional currents remain active and unspoken. Because these feelings are pushed out of awareness, they do not disappear. Instead, they often grow stronger and emerge indirectly through projection or emotional triggers. A person may begin to perceive depth or mystery in the other, without realizing that these perceptions are shaped by their own unconscious material. This can lead to fantasies, emotional tension, or a strong attraction that feels difficult to explain. The shadow continuously seeks expression and integration, and when it is activated by someone meaningful, it creates psychological pressure that demands attention. These hidden emotions may appear as intrusive thoughts, emotionally charged dreams, or sudden waves of vulnerability. Rather than resisting them, awareness allows these experiences to become meaningful signals pointing toward inner integration. Denial only strengthens their influence, while recognition transforms them into conscious understanding. The process of individuation in Jungian psychology refers to the development of a whole and integrated self. It involves bringing unconscious material into awareness and moving beyond fragmented identity patterns shaped by fear, conditioning, and defense mechanisms. In relationships, individuation often begins when strong emotional projections arise toward another person. Instead of recognizing these feelings as internal, the mind may project them outward, believing the other person is the sole source of emotional intensity or meaning. This creates an illusion in which the other is idealized, while the internal origins of these feelings remain unrecognized. Over time, this can create emotional confusion, tension, or unresolved longing. The psyche encourages individuation by pushing these projections toward awareness so they can be reclaimed. This requires turning inward and observing emotional reactions, recurring thoughts, and dream imagery connected to that person. Through this reflection, it becomes clear that what is experienced externally is deeply tied to internal psychological processes. Individuation demands emotional courage, as it involves facing vulnerability, fear of rejection, and the possibility of changing how a relationship is understood. Yet this process allows projections to be withdrawn and integrated, transforming unconscious attraction into conscious awareness. Practices such as reflection, journaling, or inner dialogue help in recognizing these patterns. Over time, what once felt like overwhelming emotional confusion becomes a structured understanding of one's inner world. The other person is no longer seen as a projection screen, but as a real individual within a more authentic connection. The unconscious mind communicates continuously through symbolic dreams, intuitive sensations, and emotional tensions related to significant people in our lives. Dreams often present emotionally charged scenarios involving that person, using symbolic imagery rather than literal messages. Water may represent emotional depth, bridges may symbolize connection, and repeated patterns may point toward unresolved longing. These dream experiences often leave behind strong emotional residue upon waking, suggesting that something meaningful is being processed beneath awareness. Intuition appears as sudden inner knowing or emotional pull without logical explanation. It can feel like a quiet certainty or a strong urge to reach out, signaling unconscious recognition of emotional significance. At the same time, daily interactions may carry subtle tension, such as prolonged eye contact, emotional sensitivity in conversation, or unexplained shifts in mood. These experiences reflect underlying psychological activity that has not yet reached conscious clarity. The psyche naturally seeks integration and balance. When deep feelings remain unacknowledged, they express themselves through indirect emotional signals until they are consciously understood. True psychological transformation occurs when these inner signals are no longer resisted, but observed with openness. Fear and denial keep emotional material fragmented, while awareness allows integration to begin. As this process unfolds, dreams, intuitions, and emotional reactions become meaningful guides rather than confusing disturbances. The inner world begins to align with conscious understanding, reducing tension and increasing clarity. What once felt like hidden emotional chaos transforms into a more coherent inner experience. Relationships begin to reflect greater depth and authenticity as projection is replaced with awareness. Ultimately, the unconscious communicates through these subtle but powerful channels to guide the psyche toward wholeness. Hidden emotional patterns are not random. They are expressions of deeper psychological movement seeking integration. The call is always toward awareness, honesty, and inner balance. When these signals are acknowledged rather than ignored, relationships evolve from unconscious projection into conscious connection. What was once silent longing becomes a more grounded and real form of emotional understanding. In the end, these experiences are not mere coincidences or imagination. They are symbolic expressions of inner psychological processes seeking recognition. The unconscious continually speaks through attraction, dreams, synchronicity, and emotional tension, inviting deeper awareness. The journey is ultimately about integration, where inner fragmentation is replaced by wholeness. By observing rather than suppressing these emotional signals, a person moves closer to psychological maturity and authentic relational experience. What feels hidden or unspoken is often the psyche guiding you toward deeper understanding. The question is no longer whether these feelings exist, but whether they will be consciously understood and integrated.